first step in study is what you call assembling your materials. Because unfortunately we can't sit at Namasurrender for a 1,000-year sacrifice and listen. But even it was austere for them. They had charcoal in their faces and the fire going, and we have a different kind of austerity. Our austerity is a little different. But the first step of study means, what materials do I need? So let's go over that right now. Double check before we go. Everyone has his writing slate?
Yeah.
This is what we call your memory board.
Yes.
Okay, everyone has his writing slate. Now, does everyone have his study guide? Okay. The study guide is what we use as our authoritative basis for the Bhagavatam study charts. Everything is based on somebody's authoritative research. We don't make up anything, Our NOI materials are also based on Bhakti Shastri study guides and Srimad brilliant walkthrough maps. Brilliant. Her maps aren't as visual as mine, but they are extremely detailed. Extremely detailed. Almost everything is compressed into what we were doing the other day, extracting. How about the other general supplies? For those of you who needed NOI, you needed 2 colors of pens, and you needed flashcards. I strongly recommend that flashcards are slogans. When the group was telling me down in Australia, they're using another study card method to try to get the most. It is the most effective way to study. All right, supplies, books. You have the general chart, and you also have a handout, the prayers for the Bhagavatam. So that's again step 1. I get out my materials, and then you take a deep breath and you're peaceful, and then you're ready to start. Organization is essential because in teacher training and learner skills, organization facilitates learning time. It facilitates learning time. It takes a little time, but without it, you're always in what we call crisis management. You've heard that word before. You're putting out brush fires, and everybody suffers. It doesn't work. So now we'll Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Jai Shri Krishna Bhagavan Shri Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna So we always begin with our prayers to the Bhagavatam. First, praying is essential for blessings. Nothing happens without blessing. Actually, we all have this Actually, even the beginning of the Chaitanya Charitamrita begins with obeisances, benedictions, and objectives. So, the CC uses the same listing objectives, but obeisances, just did that. And then the benedictions, and then the objectives have to be defined. So, what are those again? Obeisances, benedictions, and objectives. Starts out like that.
Obeisance.
Okay.
Benediction.
All right. And our strategies, we talked about this now before. We've clarified it, and we have compared it to the computer.
Objective.
Compared it to the computer. The computer will have on the screens, it will have a minus and it will have a plus, right? And maximize. So we're now using these terms to compress and enlarge, right? Reduce and enlarge. So when we study, we compress, and when we write, we expand. Those are two functions of the mind. You find that in Bergeon's Art of Teaching. The mind is capable of these two functions, of compressing and expanding. So when we study, we're interested in time and extracting essence. When we're writing, we're interested in elaboration. So we have to expand. But the two work together. They're inverse. Just as last year we were emphasizing teacher-learner, this year the emphasis is reader-writer. Readers and writers. You want to be better readers? You want to be better writers. If you're a better reader, you'll know how to compress. If you want to be a better writer, you'll know how to expand. Okay? So tell your neighbor what we just told you. Okay?
I think I want to follow something.
First he says we can responsible what? Benediction. And then finally we say object.
Listen.
Actually,
In my mind. Okay, what? Yes, I understand.
Which you'll see, those three objectives, obeisances,
Yes. You must say the same thing. When you study, you must do compress. Yes, and when you write it, you expand. You can.
So did you all find that you were able to explain it to someone? Articulation is essential. Articulation, I always give references according to the Collins model of learning. If we want to learn something, we have to articulate it. At that stage, we can use it. If we can't articulate it, it means we don't understand it. And if we don't understand it, we cannot apply it. And if we cannot apply it, what is the point of knowledge? We have to go from gyan, it's just gyan. But application is vigyan, realized knowledge. So to prove that we have realized knowledge, we have to apply it in our lives. What's the point of it? It's hypocrisy. So that stage, to get to that stage, is articulation. I am clear. So did everybody have a clear understanding? Were you able to get it clearly from your study partners? They were able to express it? Okay. Because again, this is teacher-learner paradigm. You're not one, you're both. All right, so again, our reading is an extraction exercise. We always go through this one. And we quickly just point these out. We've done it a lot, so we won't spend too much time on them. So our first term with signals is nectar. Nectar. Our second extracted word is fruit. Fruit. And our third extracted root is jewels. Jewels. And the next one is vision.
Vision.
And then the next one is life breath. Life breath. Okay. And the next one is sun.
Sun.
Okay. And then the next one is Krishna.
Krishna.
Okay. So we have nectar.
Nectar.
And life jewels.
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 Life breath. Sun. Krishna.
Okay, so again, we extract vanilla extract. And then when you read these words,
which was the fifth one to do after vision? Which was the
more
fifth one, vision, and then?
But they
Life
highlight
breath?
it.
Sorry?
Life breath. You got
Yeah.
life breath.
So now recite after. O Srimad Bhagavatam.
Bhagavatam.
O nectar churn.
O nectar churn.
From the ocean.
From the ocean.
All the Vedic scriptures. The most precious transcendental fruit. spiritual vision.
O you grant spiritual vision to all the people of the world.
O life breath of the Vaishnava devotees.
O life breath of the Vaishnava devotees.
O Lord, you are the sun.
O Lord, you are the sun,
Which has arisen.
which has risen
Dispel the darkness.
to dispel
to dispel the darkness of creation.
Krishna,
You are Shri Krishna,
who has kindly returned
who has kindly returned
to be with us.
to be with us.
Now you notice one feature, by the way, Prabhupada says of the devotee, he has 26 qualities, which, by the way, are manifest in all of you. As you progress in spiritual life, they become more and more apparent. Just as bhakti is latent within each of you, you're just now in the process of uncovering it. You're removing the coverings, the gross and subtle coverings on the soul. The 26 qualities are also there within you. And one of those 26 qualities is poetic. Remember this? Yes. So if you notice, we're going to be talking again a lot about the skills here, because when you want to write, you want to use what are called literary features. If you notice, these acharyas are poetic. It's not dry. You know, they're using words like fruit, nectar, sun, life breath. Right? They're using what is called either simile or metaphor. Simile or metaphors are comparison. What are they? Similes?
And metaphor.
Are comparisons. Yes, they're comparison. A simile will be, you'll know the difference. A simile will say, you are like the sun. In other words, you are compared to it. A metaphor will be, you are the sun. It's direct. Somebody will say, oh, he's like a lion. Which one is that? No.
No.
Simile.
Simile.
He's like a lion. You are a lion. It's a
Metaphor.
Okay, let's try one more. Okay, he recites this quickly as the wind.
Simile.
Okay, he is the wind.
Metaphor.
So now you have literary features when you start to write. You're expected to use those as embellishments because they help clarify, the imagery helps clarify the understanding. You're weaving in a lot of skills. Oh, Srimad Bhagavatam, no, before we go on, let us extract some key words from the second sloka. Obeisances. Reading. Bliss. Rain. Love. And served. And Krishna. Okay, key words again. Obeisances. Reading. Bliss. Rain. Love. Reader. Served. Krishna. O Srimad Bhagavatam. I offer my respectful obeisances. By reading you. One attains transcendental bliss. For your syllables reign. Now you see there we have a metaphor. You see it, it's all over. It's a poetic device. Pure love of Krishna. On the reader. You are always to be served. By everyone. Now let's find out why. For you are a most merciful incarnation. Bhagavatam is the literary incarnation. It's Krishna. It's Krishna. And we're starting today with Canto 1, this lotus feet. Okay, on the next one we get, again, direct comparisons. Sometimes they're just another synonym. Sometimes it's a metaphor. Okay, a synonym is a word that has the same meaning. It will be a word that has the same meaning. It's not something that's quite different, but there's a comparison, right? So you have synonyms. That's like if I say, she's very thin, and I may say she's very trim. Right? You know, they both Same meaning, those are synonyms. Similarly, you're making a comparison between very distinctly different things, but there's some idea of a connection there, a point of a tangent that's similar. So here we have the first word, friend.
Friend.
Okay, we've got a friend. And then we have the next one, companion.
Companion.
Okay, and then the next one, teacher.
Teacher.
Now these are all what we would call synonyms, right? Or just a direct word that we're using. How about the next one, wealth?
Well.
Now here we have what we call perhaps a simile, because now we're saying, or a metaphor, right? Well, because you usually think of money, right? Deliverer. Okay. And good fortune.
Good fortune.
Good fortune and bliss.
Bliss.
All right. And now again, obeisances.
Obeisances.
Oh, Srimad Bhagavatam.
Oh, Srimad Bhagavatam.
Oh, my only friend.
Oh, my only friend.
Now this is interesting because you say, well, wait a minute, I have a lot of friends. But because the Bhagavatam is the incarnation of Krishna, the Prabhupada says, if someone says he's your friend, he's not your friend. What should he have told you? He should have told you Krishna is your friend. Right. So here you're saying the same thing about the Bhagavatam, because it is. How many of your friends are going to be as instructive as the Bhagavatam? Are they going to run up to you and say, did you know you have to do this? They probably won't be so brilliant. Because the Bhagavatam is direct instructions from Krishna. Okay? Oh, my dear companion.
Oh, my dear companion.
Find it when you're reading. Oh, my teacher.
Oh, my
teacher.
Very instructive. Oh, my greatest wealth.
Oh, my greatest wealth.
Oh, my deliverer.
Oh, my deliverer.
And you think, well, how can that be? It destroys your soul and body, which is what's keeping you here. Oh, my good fortune.
Oh, my good fortune.
The Prophet said, I created you good fortune. The Bhagavatam will also do that. And oh, my bliss.
Oh, my bliss.
Should become ecstatic by reading it. And I offer my heartfelt obeisances unto you.
I offer my heartfelt obeisances unto you.
The more you read the Bhagavatam, the more these prayers will seem quite real for you. They won't just be a string of words. Okay, on the next one we have opposites. We have unsaintly and saintly. Okay, unsaintly contrasted with saintly. And then we have uplifter. Contrasted with fall. And then we have a plea. Don't leave. And then we have another plea. A request, manifest, become manifest in two places.
In my heart.
Heart, and then, right, it's come manifest in your heart. One thing about bhakti is that it spills over. And you'll see people who are confused with bhakti. It pours out of them. Prabhupada never stopped talking about Krishna. It just pours out. The more they're infused with bhakti, it's not as though they can keep it within. It's just manifest pouring out of them. So you come here, become manifest in my heart, and then if that does, it automatically become manifest with what?
In my
In my throat. We'll be talking about Krishna everywhere. And the very important thing we're going to learn in this first canto is that why do we say always remember Krishna and never forget him? Because the minute you stop thinking about, talking about, remembering Krishna, at that moment misfortune sets in. Like we were. Did you all hear that? The moment you don't hear about, remember, speak about Krishna, or his devotees, or his pastimes or qualities, at that moment, your misfortune sets in. So this is why we assemble. To hear about, to glorify, and remember. Shravanam starts, then there will be Kirtanam, right? And then Smaranam is the next step, because how can you remember something if you don't know anything?
Yeah.
Right? Can you remember anything about Krishna if you don't know anything about him? So it goes in that progression. First you hear, then you repeat, and then you will be able to remember. Shravanam. Okay, so are we all ready now? Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna?
Krishna, Krishna.
Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama. Okay, so may we pass this around? we just go around in a circle. So now a little recap on our introduction here. Revised teacher learner concepts from last year. This year's reader writer, inverse operations. We talked about synonyms, similes, and metaphors. Remember those three? Right. And the 26 qualities are there with you. As you progress, they become more and more valuable. It's hopeful, isn't it? You just have to scrape off the coverings. Not somebody can have to try to get them from somebody else. You'll be inspired to get them from somebody else, perhaps. Somebody else said that. Okay, so the first part of our class today is the overview of the first canto of the Bhagavatam. So now, hand in hand, you'll need your overview chart as well as your magic slates, your memory boards. Our process is 4 steps. See, hear, say, write. That's called multisensory. See, hear, say. See? I see it. I hear it. I see it. I say it and I write it. Multi-sensory what? You're using more than one sense. That's more powerful, and the more you do it, the deeper the retention. If you depend on one sense in Kali Yuga, it's a percentage. It makes sense. You get a percentage as a result. The more senses you use, the stronger the impact. Okay, so when we begin our studies, we like to use what the audience is familiar with. This is a very important thing. If you were to preach in another country, or perhaps in an area where you're not so familiar with technology, you perhaps wouldn't use the technological reference. But most people now all have cell phones. They all have computers, maybe even iPads. So one important feature of interaction is to try to see what are they used to. Right? So we do that here as well, because your audience can be made. Right? For instance, when Prabhupada was preaching, they didn't have computers, they didn't have cell phones. Dictaphone was the most advanced technology he had.
Maybe an electric typewriter.
Yes, and typewriters, and the devotees had to struggle so hard. When they came to Vrindavan, they had to make phone calls that were very difficult to make. Very difficult, right? So, but we take advantage of technology, right? You have to correct it. And that way everybody can be made, especially if you're teaching children. You can't deny that the world out there has all these things. You don't put them in a box. You just teach them the proper utilization of these things. Everything depends on its utility, not on the item itself. This is your variety. So this will be your computer. You have your computers. And this computer we will open it up to the book we want. What book do we want today? Srimad Bhagavatam. Right? So you open up your computer to the Srimad Bhagavatam. And since we use the calendar, Hanumat Prasad Swami first introduced this idea over 20-some years ago. If we do one canto per month, then every year, as the Vaishnava calendar goes around, we can go through the Bhagavatam and read it. And each year, you think, wow, now I refresh my memory, and now I can do one more. So being the first month of the year, which canto do we want to open? First. We're going to open canto 1. We're going to open canto 1, and the computer will show, if you point to it, the computer. You like that, huh? Yeah, you like the pink color. Very good. Okay. This computer, the little cursor, if you let it, you just point to something in a given moment, will show the size of the file, right? So the cursor will show us that Canto 1 has how many chapters?
19 chapters.
Right, it has 19 chapters. compare that to the feet of Krishna, we find out he has 19 furlongs. Right, he has 19 furlongs, right. Okay, so Canto 1 has how many chapters? 19. Okay, so our objectives today on the Bhagavatam, we're going to state our objectives. So far we know the book. And we just have learned or reminded ourselves that the first canto has 19 chapters. Okay. The next objective would be to know how many divisions, according to NOI study guide. Okay? How many divisions, or topics, or major sections. Our maps will help us. You have your map. You see the colored version here. A map is a radiant pattern. That means it goes from the middle out, like rings on a tree. If they cut a tree, you can see the layers of the growth. Each ring represents a ring. You know how old the tree is if it's been cut, when you don't have rings. So here we work from the center. You see 119 on our map, right? You see it on your map? The 19? And you see how many circles around it? 4. So those indicate the 4 sections, the 4 topics, 4 divisions, according to Narayani Maharaj's study guide, which is our basis. And she has spoken on the Bhagavatam in conjunction with Burjan Prabhu for over 6 years. So her lectures are very beneficial. Okay, so now on our computers, we're going to put 1, 2, 3, and 4. Those dots will represent the 4 sections of this first canto. So now you've learned we're in the Bhagavatam, we're in the first canto. It has 19 chapters, and we know now it has 4 sections. Okay. Now on the side of your charts, you'll see numbers have been written, very large numbers. They correspond in color of this master chart, usually black and white. They correspond to the 4 topics. We use the spectrum to indicate position, right? So first position is pinkish, and the next position is orange, and then we go to green and blue, clockwise from 2 positions on the clock. Okay? Most of you are familiar with this to follow. You can help someone who's new to it, who's sitting next to you. And the numbers on the side correspond. The first number is 6. And the next number is 5. And then we get 4. 4. And we see a progression. We're counting backwards. And then we see a repetition of 4. So we use a memory trick. So if I start with 6 and I go down, what do I get? 5. And I go down and I get
4.
And I repeat and I get
4.
Okay, so we have 6, 5,
4.
Okay? So now we attach that, because this is our next stage of knowledge. 6. What's the next number? 5. The next number? 4. And your last one? 4. All right. Now these indicate the size. Again, just the size of these sections. Now that's important to know. That is important to know because you want to know how much emphasis is being given on a particular topic. You'll see in some cantos there will be many, many chapters, like on Samkhya. It's so important. Many, many chapters on a particular topic. All of the topic, every sloka, every word is important. But some chapters are given even greater emphasis on topics. 6, 5, 4, 4. Now, it's easy to remember something when we see it, but if it's not there, can we recreate it? So see, erase your board, and see if you can do it now without looking at a chart or your neighbor, and see if very quickly now you can recreate or just, you know. 6, 5, 4. And now we know the topics. First one has 6 chapters, the second one has 5, the next one has 4, and the last one has 4. Okay, our objectives today will be to learn the topics of those, also the chapter titles, so we can go into that first really fast. And then we're going to get into it a lot. You said it? Good boy. Before, are you working on your computer too? Okay, so now let's recreate the dots for the 3rd time and write the number 6, 5, 4. You do something 3 times, it's very strong. 6, 5, 4, 4. attach more information? Because it's like a rung on the ladder. If you get the previous information fixed, then you can add more. If you keep adding, in parlance, teaching parlance, it's called masking. If you just keep going, and you keep going, and you keep going, then you forgot what you started with. And usually the mind gets over digestion, and then you forget everything. So you can't work like that. You have to keep going back and fix it and then add. Okay? This is called, what's it called? Masking. Yes, I covered all the previous information. And the teacher's still moving. And I can't remember, and I've lost, and then I give up. You have your mind, like your digestive system. You can assimilate so much. So you have to fix it before you go on. Everybody understand that point? Right? I can tell you exactly. The other day I took something to eat too late at night, and the next day I couldn't digest it, and I was sick for a whole day. I just pushed it too hard. So you push the mind too hard, it will do the same thing. So you have to work with your students and yourself intelligently. I can take so much, I fix it, then I go on, and I fix that, and I go on, and I fix that.
So how would you define masking? So how would you define masking?
Masking? Masking is covering up previous information by moving too quickly.
So it's not a good thing.
Well, is it digestion good? You don't work beyond capacity if you're concerned about results.
It's like an overload.
It's overload, yeah, it's mental overload.
It's not too
It's in Bergeron's art of teaching. And even it's been studies have been shown that over 7 points of information, that's maximum. On the chart, we don't put more than 7. If we have more than 7, we break it down. After 7, the mind just forget it. If I can give you 7 numbers, you might be able to remember all 7. If I give you 8, and even 7, I don't push it. I try to break it down. This is scientific. It's not myth. In the computer, 7 bits jumps into 1 byte. Okay. Are we ready? Okay. So now we can add 6, 5, 4, and 4. Now we're going to add the codes with the words and the signals. Okay? Our first 6 chapters have to do with NV. Narda?
Yes.
So we go Narda. And Vyas. Narada is Vina, which was given to it by the Lord. And Vyas, who wrote the Bhagavatam. So what's the first copy?
Narada.
How many chapters?
6.
Very good. You're so attentive. All right, now we're going to move to the second one. You'll see the codes as you move around your map. You'll see the codes. We have Krishna now. The next 5 chapters have to do with Krishna. Krishna. And he's in 2 places in these 5 chapters. He starts out in Hastinapur. Hasti means elephant. Hasti is like hand. And for the elephant, his trunk is his hand.
What does it mean?
Hastinapur means the city of elephants. If you're rich, an elephant has a trunk, right?
Ah, okay.
You have elephants. Believe me, you don't find too many people with elephants these days. But the sign of wealth was you have a lot of elephants. Because you've got to feed them 10,000 bananas a day or something. I don't know. That's a lot. So Hasti also means hand. So how does the elephant get his bananas? Yeah, he doesn't use his feet, he uses his trunk. This is Hastinapur. So you find Krishna introduced in the Bhagavatam in this section. And the first place is Krishna. Then he starts out in where? Hastinapur. And then he moves on to Dwarka. Yes, the kingdom under the sea. Evidence is there, but many people say, oh no, that's a myth. Hastinapur and Dwarka. How many chapters?
5.
How many chapters for Narada and Vyas?
6.
How many for Krishna and Hastinapur?
5.
Okay, now let's go on to our next section. Now we're going to have 4 chapters here. We're going to hear about the birth of Parikshit. And
Pandava.
the birth of
Parikshit.
4 chapters there. And in this chapter we are going to find out, put P here, and you could put P with an arrow, one of his renounce. Krishna also departs in this section. Krishna leaves the planet. Very sad. Krishna is leaving in this section. Dhritarashtra leaves, Vidura, the Yadis dynasty has been annihilated. It's a very sad section. Krishna departs. And everything's on the shoulders of Parikshit. Everybody goes. Well, Bhishma Dev departed in the other section. He was in chapter 9. He left earlier. He didn't wait around for this. Okay, now in our last one, it's all about Parikshit and how everything has fallen upon his shoulders. So it's all about Parikshit, and here the signal is the examining magnifying glass. Neela carries one around. Neela, hold it up. You got your magnifying glass here? She's Parikshit. She's always examining. He's the examiner. He's looking for that personality he saw when he was saved in the womb. Right? And how many chapters about Parikshit? 4. And this is always the tragic irony of every drama. As soon as the hero ascends, something happens to him. You think it's going to be wonderful from now on. And Ram's going to go to the throne and suddenly he's exiled. It's always the way the dramas go. Sita finally gets to come home and then she's condemned. I mean, check out every drama. As soon as it looks like, oh, happy days are ahead, no. So for Parikshit, finally everybody's waiting for him to restore all the good qualities in Kali Yuga. And what happens to him? He gets cursed. And Kali steps in. So we're going to hear about that in the last 4 chapters, plus the appearance of Shukadeva. So we have Narada and Vyas, how many chapters? 6. Krishna and Hastinapur and Dwarka. 5. Now we're going to hear about the birth of Parikshit. And then 4. And then we're going to hear about Parikshit. 4. Okay, very quickly create all of these. And then after you do, you turn to your study partner and you explain it very quickly. You have to articulate it. Show them the board and you tell them what you just have to say.
Now there are 4 topics. Yes, first subdivision. First subdivision is 6 chapters. Is Narada and Vyasa at 6 topics. The second subdivision is Krishna Hastinapur Dwarka, 5 topics. The fourth is Parikshit's born and Pandava's brilliance. 4 topics. The last one is 4 topics with Parikshit.
Alright, is everyone now fixed with the first objective? Was to know the structure numerically and in terms of category. You have your maps now for quick reference. Okay? It's very important to give people learning material for future revision. Okay? I think I'm not going to try in another class with you at this time, because we're doing video and that's the next two months. There has to be a certain cutoff point. Okay? Now, there's one very important understanding that we must have. The Bhagavatam is to be understood not by chronology, but by philosophical points. We will become very confused in the first canto because we hear somebody speaking to someone else, and then we hear two other speakers and sets of listeners, and then we'll hear another reference to another set of speakers and listeners, and we are immediately confused. Who is saying what to whom when? So let us establish that in this first canto. Okay? If you know that, then you will not be confused as you go through all 12 cantos, because we are getting different chronologies and different sets of speakers and listeners. Okay? So the most important combination, we have Maharaj Parikshit and Shukadeva Goswami. Parikshit has been cursed to die in 7 days, and he sits agreeing to fast, and the sages have come to hear and see him. And Shukadeva is in the last chapter, appears. And so the whole conversation, this is your initial one. This is your first one. Okay, everybody got that? So you'll see that. And actually, the first canto establishes this plus some other very important philosophical points. Then, in this audience of people listening, there is one personality named Sutta Goswami. He hears this. Later, Sutta Goswami, okay, this is not Sukadeva, this is somebody else. One of the listeners, Sutta Goswami, speaks the same thing at Namaskharanya, a 1,000-year sacrifice. And the chief spokesman for the listeners at that sacrifice is called S, we've got another S, Shanaka Rishi. So you get confused, you say, wait a minute, who's Sutta Goswami, who's Shanaka Rishi, where are they, what time is this? So the who, what, when, where, and why is very confusing. It's like the chronology jumps around. But the reader is advised to not take the lineal conception of time, but to take the cosmic one. Because time is cosmic. It's a higher level of awareness. It's actually right now that we are participating right now. These personalities are acting presently for us in the cosmic sense. Yeah. So what was your first five? Swami, and you have many sages who have assembled, who are listening at the bank of the Ganges in Hastinapur. Okay? And who's sitting amongst them?
Sutta Goswami.
He's the son of Brahmaharshana, and that's the story too you'll hear about in the pastime of Balaram. Brahmaharshana was supposed to speak. He offended Balaram. Balaram killed him. And Sutta was chosen to act on his behalf. The son represents the father. Like he is the living representative of his father. So Sutta Goswami heard it. He speaks it at a 1,000-year sacrifice in Namaskharanya. Has anyone here ever been there?
Yeah.
You've been to Namaskharanya? You've been? Beautiful place. Very sacred place. Some say it's the hub of the universe. Some say Namaskharanya. And who's leading the spokesman for all of the assembled people there?
Shanaka Rishi.
Shanaka Rishi. Devotees by his name. Shanaka Rishi. And he's very vastly learned. Shanaka Rishi. Okay. Now, we also have, later, we have Vidura, right? He's the brother of Dhritarashtra and Pandu, but he was born of a maidservant. So Vidura, after he quits the palace, he's been offended by everybody. He goes out, I think it's for something like 30 years he's traveling. And he Maitreya Rishi. So you'll get many chapters when you say questions by Vidura, further talks between Vidura and Maitreya. So you'll see Vidura and Maitreya. Many, many, from like third canto on, you'll get that. But you'll get references of all of them throughout. And even in other cantos, you'll get more discussions between Narada and Yudhisthira. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. Sometimes we have done bends where we've taken circles inside of circles inside. And in one canto, in Canto 7, we found 7 circles. Starting with one set of speakers, then another set of speakers, then another set of speakers, then another set of speakers. And finally, there were 7 circles within circles. It can be very confusing to the reader. But these are your general ones. So quickly, question.
Yes. Sanakarichi, he just heads the sages, but
He's the spokesman for the sages. He's asking questions.
Oh, he asked the questions.
Yes, yes.
Parikshit and Sukadev, they were like 5,000 years ago approx.
Yes,
yeah.
right.
But then Sutta Goswami and Sanakarishi happened when?
Well,
Because
I
it's
know
after.
exactly right after, yes, of course.
So-
He heard it first and then he went there and he performed the thing for 1,000
So it's like in
years sacrifice to offset what they could see, the incipient age of Kali. That's exactly what the story says.
So it's like close.
Yeah.
It's not very.
1,000 years sacrifice.
So I mean to say, it's close to Sukadev and Parikshit. Yeah.
They came after because he heard it there, but he had to repeat it.
She was dead.
Yeah.
Not too much long time between.
Exact time, I don't know.
It
Wasn't that years after that. And then Vidura is traveling, and of course, he's also, his questions to Maitreya are also asked. He's approaching Maitreya. So you'll get discussions about Bhagavatam between Vidura and Maitreya.
How would you do that with circles? It would seem like there's 3 circles.
In this case, well, definitely we would start, if we would say, on your first one, I can't say this one would fit in necessarily, but you would definitely say your big one here and then your little one inside. You would have to say, this one would be Parikshit and Shukadev Goswami, and then Sutta Goswami heard that. And Shankarisi was the spokesman for the...
Okay. And then outside it would
Yeah,
be...
but Vidura,
right,
that's a
right.
separate thing. You could probably... But they had to have heard it from somebody.
I guess I'm just wondering why the small circle is not in the center. It doesn't really matter, does it?
No, a ven is like this. A ven means...
Oh. Wow. Peacock feather.
You'll do a ven when you study NOD. This is levels of happiness for first 2 stages of bhakti, levels of happiness for second stage of bhakti, levels of happiness for the final stage of bhakti. But the big one could, it's the rasas do that also. Like Shanta, then Dasya, then Sakya,
Okay.
then Vita, and then Madhurya. All of the bigger ones include this one. Understand that?
Yeah, and that's why it's smaller, because it includes
Yes,
they heard
it
that
includes
from
the
there.
other ones, but this one does not contain the other ones. Everybody got it? That's all
That's
it is.
interesting.
It's used in mathematics.
Yeah,
Logic.
a Venn diagram.
Very good. Okay. Okay, is she ready to go on? You got that? It's very important to know this, because if you're listening and reading, you will be perhaps bewildered. Talking and where this will make sense. All right. Now, the most important thing about the first canto, or one of the most important points about the first canto, is that in the first 3 chapters, even though we call it Narada Vyas, the first 2 chapters are called the Mangala Charana, because they establish the 6 questions that are being asked, the sages, and the importance of the Bhagavatam. And then when we get to Narada Vyas, we found out why it was written. And who wrote it. And then we were going to find out when Krishna appears, That's important to know. What's his part in it?
When?
And then, by the end, we're going to find out why it was spoken. Because Parikshit is cursed, that's how it is spoken.
First 3 chapters are Mangalacharna, and it's the.
The questions of the sages, like
question,
that this is the importance of the
Oh,
Bible.
yeah. Questions of the sages.
Okay. Now, we don't want to go into this too deeply, but I'm just giving you some general points about how it was spoken, why, who wrote it, why, what's its importance in Kali Yuga. That's all defined in the first canto. It's very important. And Prabhupada's purports cover almost every philosophical point that you would ever need to know. He even uses the introduction as the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya. It's all about Lord Chaitanya. Because throughout the whole Bhagavatam, what is it going to? Pure devotional service and the chanting of the holy name. It comes down to that. Pure devotional service and the chanting of the holy name. The whole Bhagavatam points to that. Pure devotional service to Krishna. Devotional service means to Krishna. Okay, so everybody clear? Okay. Okay, are we ready now to go through the chapter titles really fast? Because we want to do some NOI things too.
Yeah.
You'll find the time goes really fast. We don't want to get too bogged down with too many details and questions, but we don't want to ignore questions. Is everybody clear so far? Okay. For sure. Have you learned something?
Yeah.
Great. Okay. So now, on the reverse side of your study chart, you see, again, this principle of extracting. And you'll see the sections, the ones I have. And you'll see here now, we have de-emphasized the circles here, and we reduced them in size at the top, because you've learned that. You can push that on a back burner. We see NB 1 to 6, K, HD, 7 to 11, P, Padamas Renouns, 12 to 15, Parikshit, 16 to 19. So now those are, you've learned that you don't have to spend your whole life tying your shoes. You know how to do it. So now we go to the next step, right? Where do I take my shoes? So you see 6 chapters here, right? And you'll see 5 here, and 4 here, and 4. So now, again, another technical term, task analysis. Before I start anything, I think about it. Why would I do that? If you just plow in, it's called mode of passion. If I stop and think about something before I do it or before I say it, it's called mode of goodness. I avoid a tragedy, perhaps, and I perform better. Task analysis. I think about the job. If I'm going to cook, I have to think about how much money do I have, how much time do I have, who's coming, is the gas working? Okay, you think about it. If you don't think about it, you just start cooking, it doesn't work. Yet most people proceed in life like that. The whole planet proceeds in the modes of passion and ignorance. Ignorance means I don't cook at all. Oh, it's too much trouble. It's just, okay? Goodness means I do it dutifully. And if it's pure goodness, I do it for Krishna's what? Pleasure. Yes, that's the way you should do everything. That's all defined in the first chapter. Okay, so here we're going to take our key extraction words. Our first 3, 1, 2, 3, are the Mangalacharna words. Questions? Divinity, and incarnation. The first chapter includes the 6 questions that are asked. The second chapter defines what is divinity and what is divine service. Very important chapter. And the third chapter, because now they're beginning to answer the question, what are Krishna's scheduled incarnations? Because they want to hear about it. First they ask what's important, and then they're told, well, hearing about Krishna. They start. the next three, we're going to hear about, well, how did the Bhagavatam come about? So who shows up? Narada. And then he gives instructions to Vyasa. Because he's despondent. He wrote the Mahabharata, he wrote the Vedanta Sutra, he wrote so many things, and he's depressed. And he says, oh, tell me why am I depressed? And Narada says, I'm going to tell you. You didn't talk directly about Krishna. What did we just say earlier? The minute you don't talk about, hear about, or repeat, or remember Krishna, what happens? You're despondent. If the Vyasadeva is despondent, what to speak of us? Right? It's proof. It's right here. Well, I feel sort of depressed. Because you're not talking about Krishna. And even worse, you're telling people to do what will actually keep them entangled in the meshes of birth and death. This is not good for you. You don't tell people the best truth. It's not good for you. And they will not. They won't want prohibitions because you've told them, oh, it's okay to do this. So that's why he's depressed. And so then Narada tells him about his life. Conversation. Very beautiful chapter. It takes you from the experiences of Shraddha to Prem in a little boy. A 5-year-old boy goes from Shraddha to Prem in chapter 6. So let's go this one, Narada. Then he instructs, and then he tells him in a conversation about his life as a little boy, like this little boy. Right? He's going to write a book someday too, I think. Okay? So what's number 1? What question? Number 2? Divinity. And 3? And 4?
Narada.
And then
Conversation.
Okay, can you do all these things for your neighbor? See if you can tell them really fast, because I don't want to take too much time writing this out.
One first question.
Essence words. Think about it. If you think about it, you can do it.
Instructions.
Just say the 6 words.
And then he tells them about when he was a little
Question.
boy.
Says to Sukadev. No, Sutta question.
Yes.
By the sage, yes.
Question by
The
the
sage, yes. Questions. Second is divinity. No? Yes, divinity. What is divinity and divine service? The first is incarnation. Five in English. Narada. Instructions Narada to Vyasadeva after conversation. Narada.
We don't want to go into that now. We won't have the time.
I just one question. What is this on the top of the circus? There are 23 shlokas, 34 shlokas.
Oh, how many slokas are in each chapter?
Yeah. Shlokas in the chapter.
Quite a bit of information there, actually. Okay. So you got the. Now, what we did on this page is called structural analysis. What we're doing on this page is what we call the thematic flow. Okay? The storyline. But first you have to get the structure. Okay? So this is your structure. You all know that by now. Right? 119, 4 parts, the sun. Now you want the storyline. The thematic flow. And storylines are fun to remember, easier to remember than just philosophical points. So usually you'll find writers embed things in a story. Much easier. Conversations. The whole Bhagavatam is conversation. Questions and answers. Okay? Let's try the next. Krishna's in 2 places, Hastinapur and Dwarka. In the first 3, he's in Hastinapur. And in the last 2, he leaves for Dwarka, and in 11 he reaches Dwarka. Okay? So that's the storyline. And he appears in the Bhagavatam the way he appeared in the Gita as a chariot Driver. He's still the servant. He's still Bhakti Vasant. So here we have personalities. Drona, Kunti, and Bhishma Dev. Who do we have?
Drona, Kunti, and Bhishma Dev.
Okay. This is actually not about Drona. It's actually about his son. Dronacharya was the father of Ashvatthama. And Ashvatthama killed Draupadi's 5 sleeping sons. He had them. And took the heads to his teacher, Drona, thinking his father killed him. And he was horrified.
Drona liked the Pandavas. He liked the Pandavas. He was the teacher.
He was the teacher of the Pandavas. Yeah. Okay. So actually, in this one, you hear the title of the story is "The Son of Drona Punished." And the reason he wasn't killed was Draupadi said, "Yeah, but if we kill him, we kill the father, because the son is the living representative." Very interesting understanding of philosophical points here. Yeah, very deep. Very deep. These people really acted on a spiritual platform. So Drona, son of Drona punished. You see the jewel. How did they kill him? By embarrassment. That's tantamount to death. Arjuna was told that. Infamy is worse than death. They cut his jewel off and they said, Drona is 7, 8. Beautifully, Kunti's prayers and Parikshit is saved. Because Ashvatthama still did, he sends a nuclear weapon and it's foiled by Arjuna. It was about to kill the baby, the last heir of the dynasty. Parikshit's in the womb. So you'll hear Kunti's beautiful prayers and Parikshit is saved in the 8th chapter. It's a whole book. Many devotees are advised to read and try to remember these prayers. Now, Bhishma Dev, passing away, famous on the bed of arrows. His instructions for how to lead the kingdom. From this point on to Yudhishthira. And then Krishna departs for Dwarka, and 11 is arrival to Dwarka. So you have 3, you have DD, Drona departure. You have Kunti, Bhishma Dev, entrance. So can you tell that flow to your neighbor really fast? Yeah. So, the next 5.
Alors, first Drona, after Kunti, after Vishmadev, after Krishna, the departure for Dwarka, and after Krishna entrance.
First is Bhakti for cultivation and Krishna's departure for
5 to 6.
It does help. The storyline makes it easy. So then when you're reading, then you just start filling in more and more.
Yeah.
But with thematic structure and thematic flow, and everything else, like it has anchoring points.
Alors,
I can't remember something.
first
It's not
subdivision for 6 topics. The first is questions by the sage,
You can't build on that.
after is divinity and divine service, and after is Krishna is all
Can we
incarnation,
go to the next section?
source of all
This is the
incarnation.
section where everybody's leaving.
After is Narada appears.
12 to
Appearance.
15.
After Narada instructs Vyasadeva.
12, the key word is birth.
Instructions.
Was born.
for Vyasa.
Yes.
And
And
after
And you'll hear about all the astrological
conversation
predictions.
between Narada and
He's being compared to this, and you're like,
also
this is
consideration
this, everything's glorious.
5 topics, Drona,
Then,
Kunti,
now the
Nectar,
department is starting to leave.
Krishna,
Dhritarashtra, he quits home. Dhritarashtra actually goes back to tell his
departure
brother,
from Narada and Krishna
go,
and
go, go, you're living like a dog in this house. Those who are Dhira go up to the mountains, looking up their bodies. Dhritarashtra quits home. He's living in the palace of those whom he tried to kill. They're so merciful to him. Just let me put them through it, they still give him shelter. Then, disappearance. Who disappears? Krishna. You'll hear more about Krishna, and then when Arjuna comes back, he comes back to Dwarka, he has this attitude. Vidura knew that, but he didn't tell the family that. He didn't want to be the bearer of bad news. He didn't want to tell them all the Yandus have killed each other, Krishna's departed. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to tell Dhritarashtra to come out of here. And he and Gandhari and Dhritarashtra take off. They don't tell anybody, they go off. And then Krishna's disappearance, all the ill omens. Very, very heavy chapter. And then 15, when Arjuna comes back and tells everybody what happened. And this is renunciation. This is renunciation. Yudhisthira takes off the throne, he takes out the jewels, he takes off his robes, he puts on a tattered shawl, he walks off. No attachment.
What happened to Devaki?
I mean, Draupadi, I'm sorry.
She followed them. First all five went, and she thought, they're not waiting for me. She decided to quit. This will show you. You can only depend on Krishna. 5 husbands and she's alone. Your only friend is who? Krishna. It's a proof in the Bhagavatam. Even little Narada says that. When his mother dies, he's a 5-year-old boy. I took this mercy of the Lord. Now for a 5-year-old boy to say that about his mother, this is a very advanced soul. Usually you need a little more help at 5 years. Right? So, birth, then Dhritarashtra goes, then Pandavas goes. Okay? So tell that to your neighbor really fast.
disappearance, the of Krishna, Pandava,
Sorry, Rashtra.
Yeah, sorry. Yes.
The next section. No. Now we're ready for the last installment.
Lord Krishna disappearance.
Now Parikshit,
Pandava,
he is full grown, he's not a baby taking over, he's full grown. He's in a golden chariot with a flag marked with a lion. And he sees the influence of Kali starting to come in, and he's off to just take it on. He goes in his chariot.
How long after the Rashi left? The Parikshit?
I don't know the exact amount of time. I don't know what point he did that as far as I know. But he's now, how Parikshit receives the age of Kali. He's out to establish religion in his kingdom, because the king knows that if my citizens are not happy, my life and my duration and everything will be diminished. What to speak of now? You imagine the poor prime ministers and kings and queens of this age. Their citizens are not what you call happy. And the king knew that. That's why the first business of the king is to make sure that the citizens are happy and protected. So he's out about to do that. In chapter 16, your key words, let's look at them. Parikshit, and then Kali. He meets with Kali directly, and Kali deals with him. And then how the Bhagavatam comes about. He's cursed. is cursed. And then when he sits down to fast until death, without his death, he takes it as the benediction. He says, "Oh, thank you, my Lord. What I did was most kindness." He said, "I will accept this curse, so I never do this again. And I will fast till death." And who shows up? So you see the whole scenario here. The appearance of Krishna, the appearance of the Bhagavatam, and the appearance of Shukadeva. So very important. Parikshit, how does he receive the angel Kali? How does he deal with Kali? Then he's cursed, and then he sits until death. And then you have the whole discourse, Shukadeva Goswami's instructions. Parikshit, Kali, cursed. Could they tell your name? And for those
Parikshit, Kali, cursed, and Sukadeva.
Now, for those of you who have your narrations, I tell you, I've been playing all 19 chapters. I can practically listen to all 19 recorded by Amalakas and Buddhas. I can listen to those almost in a day. You can hear all first canto. If you want to go into more depth, you can hear Narayani's and Darshan's lectures. Quite expensive. Not enough time in a day for all that. And of course, you're on but at least now you have the structure and the thematic flow. So you have the philosophical context. Lotus feet of Krishna.
The word is the opposition of punishment. What does that mean? The word
Punishment and reward.
punishment, I know. The word is opposite. Yes,
Reward is
I don't know.
right. Yes, it's opposite of punishment. Yes.
Yeah,
People
reward.
come here, we try to facilitate them. You know. A lot of things can be downloaded. I'm sure you can get many other lectures too. You can get Prabhupada's lectures on it. But we're trying to focus on the direct text because the next stage will be okay. I know the title of the chapter. The next step will be what's the text, and then the next step will be what are the purports. And those are dealt with in because they go into that's premature at this stage. Everything has to be like the leaves on the tree. Otherwise, you dive right into the purport and it's context. You don't have the contextual reference. Our approach is progressive and contextual references throughout. Do you find it helps you? It helps you.
Oh, yeah.
Because otherwise, you get a little piece here and there, and without the big picture, you can't anchor it. It's valuable, but the anchoring makes it more valuable. Better understood. So now, if you would please take out your NOI book, and if you would please take out your maps. Whoops. We have only 25 minutes now. Just do a very quick introductory overview. We have talked about from the study guide.
Do we have a map for the NOI? Map for NOI?
No.
I have two, I'm sorry, so I returned.
So you need your slates, your memory boards, you need your Nectar of Instruction, and you need your collection of maps by Srimad. mean what?
Is this one? No?
So first on your memory slate, remember the first stage of learning is structure, skeleton.
No, yes.
From the study guide, we take what the experts have said. From the study guide in the Bhakti Shastri course, and I think we passed around the study guides, or if you have your own, please bring it. It just saves the amount of materials we have to distribute and collect. As you can see, it's getting voluminous now with 2 courses paralleling. The NOI, according to the study guide, had 3 divisions. 1, 2, and 3. So show that on your slate really quickly, because you have to know the anatomy of what you're studying. Right? We have 3 divisions to the NOI. This book has 11 texts and a preface written by Srila Prabhupada. I'm thinking if I do a chart, I want to make the preface a separate circle because it's so packed that to try to squeeze it in with 7 texts. But the first part, the first circle is the preface plus Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti. 7 verses discuss the progression of Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti. You all remembered that. So what do we have in the first division? Preface and Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti. If I do a chart, I will make the preface separate because it is amazing how Prabhupada says so much, like 2.5 pages. I can't believe how much he says. It's unbelievable. It's a whole dissertation, 2.5 pages. Then, one verse is Raganuga Sadhana Bhakti. It doesn't show on my screen. One verse, verse 8, is Raganuga Sadhana Bhakti. And Raganuga is spontaneous devotional service. What defines that? So you'll be here a progressive definition of Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti from the initial steps up to Raganuga Sadhana, which is the next step. Mind you, they're all sadhana, prescribed duties. Then the last one has 2 parts, Bhav, Bhakti, and Prema. BV and PV. We use codes. Bhav, Bhakti, and Prema. And those are verses 9, 10, and 11. Okay? So you know the progression. And I hope if I start to find the time, I can start doing charts like this. It's getting harder and harder for me. I don't know why. I used to be able to stay up through the night and do these things, and I don't do it. And night's the only time to do them. You can't do it during the day. All of our, you see, the personalities probably will write at night. The telephone calls, everything else you can't. Yeah, once you start, you can't be interrupted. So, first is your preface, Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti, Raganuga Sadhana Bhakti, verse 8, and then Bhav Bhakti, and we're going to find in Bhava Bhakti, we're going to find in these, in verse 9, we're going to find hierarchy, which means levels of places. Which places are most important? Ascending from lower up to higher, Radhakund. And then the next progression in 10 is personalities. Everything is a hierarchy. The only thing that is the same would be on the level of the soul, right, in quality, right? But there is a hierarchy even beyond that. You know, certain personalities, the intensity with which they have a relationship with that. And then there's one book, very important book, Prem Bhakti Chandrika by Narottam Das, in which he explains that everything that's going on is nothing more than each one of you and your relationship with Krishna. And the amount of happiness you can derive or whatever is dependent on your capacity. Some jivas have greater capacity. Some have a capacity in Shanta, some have a capacity in Daksha, some have a capacity in Sakya, and some in Vatsalya, and some in Madhurya. But it's determined by the intensity of the mood. And that's dependent on you as a jiva. And only you will know that. Nobody else can have that. Like, for instance, somebody like Yamuna. You can imagine what she must have experienced. You can't take that from her. You can be inspired by it, but that's her relationship with Krishna. And each of you will have your own connection.
When do we realize this?
It's progressive in accordance with surrender. It's revealed by the process. By the process. It's not by somebody saying, you pay me and I will tell you your group. It's revealed by the process. And you will know. And it's nothing you broadcast. Because if you do, Krishna will make it away. If people go around saying, I'm this, I'm that, Prabhupada never did that. And Bhakti Vinod did in the right way, but very unusual. They won't say it here. That's really. So, you know the structure now? So the next step, you know the structure. All right, let's take a quick look at our maps. I just want to introduce you to the maps. And let's see how Srimati has done an amazing job here. I find her one of the really amazing Vaishnavis in our society. She's very attached to the holy name. She's not been well. She chants constantly. She studies. She reads her DVDs 2 hours a day. If you can hear the lectures that she did with Rajlila and Rajlila class, Srimati gives the last class. And that's rare because she doesn't do that anymore. So the last class on Radhika is by Srimati. Okay, so let's take a walk through because her book, and that is a strategical strategy. It's called Walk Through the Book. So maps are meant to do that, just as we walked through Canto 1. Let's take a quick walk through the NOI with the help of Srimati's maps. Remember, before you start, you task analyze. You just don't, you just take a big look through the whole thing. Right? This is a strategy.
Which one are we looking at?
Okay, so we're looking at walkthrough map number 1 on the top. Okay, and this is walkthrough map number 1. And we're going to find out what is real atonement. Okay, let us turn now, walk through map, we're just going to turn our pages quickly. Just quick flipping through. Walk through map number 2 is on what? Text 1. Okay? And you'll see here Bhakti Vedas on the support. If you get a chance, you want to go over this one stage, see if you can get that part of it. Sloka. Text 1. Walk through map number 3. Now we're getting Bhaktisiddhanta's commentary, because you'll see a parallel. Prabhupada writes in this book, but he also gives Bhaktisiddhanta's commentaries. You get parallel analysis here. He defines 3 kinds of urges and what inauspiciousness they bring to someone. Anybody who's dictated by these urges, his life is inauspicious. Inauspicious. You may think he's free, but his life is inauspicious. Next, let's go to our next walkthrough map. Our next walkthrough map is on text 2. Here we have activities that spoil our devotional service. Our first one, we have the 6 urges and quite a few maps on that. Then we have activities that spoil. This is very important. We have to know what will impede my spiritual progress. And take it seriously. And take it as a whole package. Not think, well, I don't need to think about this part. I'll just take that part. That's what you call filtered knowledge. Don't do that to yourself, because you will be the one that will gain by taking the whole prescription. Okay? What are the 6 things that will spoil my progress? The next, text 3, walk through that. 6 principles that will help me in my devotional service. So you get first the yamas and then you're going to get those things that I shouldn't do, and then you're going to get the things that I should do. You have to have the 2 side by side. What don't I do? If that's negative, negative, negative. You might say to the baby, don't do this, don't do that, don't do that. And then some children will be smart. Well, then tell me what to do. Am I just supposed to stand there and not move? So you'll see in the classroom, the smart teacher will engage children, but also tell them, yes, you should do this, but be sure you don't do that, side by side. The prohibitions as well as the instruction. Favorable. What will be favorable to your execution of pure devotional service? The goal of Upadeshamrita is to make each of you here, guess what? A Goswami. Yes, Goswami in the green.
They're using capital K and a small e. What is that? Well, let's say the endeavor executed with intelligence in K-E.
It's called Krishna. Krishna consciousness means KC. Krishna consciousness.
Oh, is that a C?
C, yeah. Krishna consciousness. Okay. All right, let's turn to our next map. Now another 6. We've had 6, 6, 6. We have 4 sets of 6. Now, we want to go to a higher platform. How do we show, because the whole idea of Krishna consciousness is relationships. Right? So how do we develop those? 6 ways. Loving exchange. And I remember when we listened to Jamuna's offerings, she said 2 out of the 6 have to do with food. Prashad.
1 and 6.
2 out of 6.
2 out of 6. And that's why she was so attracted to being cooked.
4 out of 6.
Well, giving and exchanging prashad.
For offering and accepting gifts and charity.
Yes.
For
Well, I
salt.
don't think they mean again prashad. I think some other item like a book or some deity that or something. The 2 out of the 6 have to do with prashad. And now walk through math next under text 5. The 3 levels of devotees. And notice how each one has more qualities. The Kanishta, you've got 5 points. The Madhyam, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 points. And the Udam, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 points. Okay? And notes on diksha and notes on chanting. Next map, text 6. Text 6 warnings against offensive materialistic mindset and behavior. What you should be careful to say no to. Very helpful. She's really extracted nicely in the text. This is the little book in a set of nice maps. She's got 6 warnings. Text 7, walk through map. This one is on how to get free of the material disease. Take the chanting of the holy name. So this one is all about chanting, individual and collective. And then number 8, remember what was 8? Raganuga Sagamati. Now this is a very evolved state. This is the development of from Shraddha, from just initial Shravanam, all the way up to Samadhi. And this is something that cannot be imitated. This cannot be imitated. you read about the progression here until the state of samadhi, which is trance. I tell you, this book has a lot in it. Really. Okay? And then our next map, text 9, starting at the bottom. You see your hierarchy from Vaikuntha. Higher is Mathura, higher is Vrindavan, higher is Govardhan, and at the top is Radha. Okay? And then, on our last page, where we have, 10, we're going to see here our progression, starting with 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Vikarmis, Karmis, Gyanis, Bhaktas, Gopis, and who's on the top? Alright, so there's a hierarchy of personalities.
This is Shloka.
This is our sloka 2. And sloka 11, the glories of Radha. Right? And here you'll hear what Bhaktivedanta Thakur writes about it, what Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati writes about it, the benefits of serving Radhakund, the importance of bathing and what constitutes bathing, and why is Radhakund so important? Because it's no different from our language. So these maps are pretty much an extraction of very helpful. Let's go back to the first page. This is a very important concept. Text 1, this is on text 1. We don't have time to take a look at our preface, but we want to do that. And also your homework. Remember you got your little notebooks? You should answer those, I think there are 12 questions altogether. Were there in the study guide, 12 questions? You should try. We have, remember, in 2 months' time, we meet 8 times on a particular thing, right? So we'll have 8 little sessions on NOI, as well as 8 sessions on the 6 chapters of Bhagavad Gita. So you have a little bit more time on NOI, but it's also deep. Don't think, oh, it's easier. This is very deep. Very deep. You should know this book in and out. It's actually the essence of Bhakti Ras.
So we should have 12 questions.
Is there 12 in your study guide? No more questions? Content specific? What page is there? No, that's a exam. Yeah, that's separate. Yeah. In your study guides, those of you who are doing homework in your little notebooks, you do it the way we set up your question format before. With black, you write out the question. First one is, who is Rupa Goswami? Now that's all in the preface. And you get about 7 or 8 points on him, at least.
So we'll go all the way into the text 3.
I think you could. You could actually, for those of you who are here for a short period of time, I strongly encourage you, like Godfrey, to be
No,
traveling.
it's in this.
Some of you here for 1 month.
It's on the
I encourage
93
you,
page.
if you have a little spare time, go ahead of our schedule. Because when you start traveling, you don't know what to do. And I know Anita's going to be traveling a lot. So for her to keep up, you're going to have to steal time while you're here. You can't imagine you're going to be this way.
I take it along with you, so I don't want to take it.
It doesn't take too much time. I realize it yesterday because I'm not done with these questions. And I just 15 minutes I could answer 2 questions.
Yes, if you can sit down and steal a little time, if you're regulated, that's the secret.
Eight classes will ask. All these questions, 12 questions. No, but Mataji said you have to do all the 12.
Okay? Now,
It's
may
on
we go on
92
to
page, no?
the first map? This is very important.
That you have to write the question in the plan. And
Ready?
answer
You can help us? You want to help us with
in your notebook.
Okay, here we go. On your first walkthrough map, text 1. This is a very important point. What is defined as real atonement? Most people think if I do something bad, I can rectify myself by doing something good. What do most people think? Something bad. I can rectify by something good. Right? If maybe I took some money from a box, but I turn around and, I give it in charity or something like that. I did something good. I took something bad, but I'm doing something good. So here, that's the first thing that concept is corrected in NOI. Real atonement. A sinful activity cannot be what? Counteracted by a pious activity. Thus real, and the term for this is prayaschita. Atonement. What's real atonement? The awakening of our dormant Krishna consciousness. And what that means, real atonement involves coming to what? Real knowledge. And for this there is a standard process. So she took a sentence and she's turning it, she's extracting and giving you the flow. Can you correct a sinful activity by a pious one? No. No. The term prayaschita, most people think that's what that means. But what does real prayaschita? Awakening your dormant Krishna consciousness. And what is the process for that? Coming to real knowledge. Okay, now they give two standard processes. You see them on the left? Regulative processes of what? Mystic yoga, and the other one? Regular principles of Krishna. As defined by who? Yes, Rupa Goswami is our guide. Now on the left you see what a renunciate, a mystic yogi would do. Austerity, celibacy, mind and sense control, renunciation, truthfulness, cleanliness, yoga, asanas. But that will not really solve the problem. Because yoga means I link with Krishna. If people say, I'm doing this yoga, I'm doing that yoga, I'm doing hatha yoga, I'm doing Ashtanga yoga, Prabhupada said it's not yoga. Yoga means linking with God. The objective is transcendental. If the transcendental objective is not there, you can't say yoga. What are you linking with? You're performing austerity, but you're not linking with the transcendental objective. And you will fail. Regulative principles, engagement in devotional service under the guidance of a bona fide guru. Methodical training in Krishna consciousness in the association of devotees and following the four regulations. Now we're going to see analogies used in this first section. A thief and the police, the elephant's bath, the Christian who goes to confession, and regulated hygienic process. Now they say, why do some people who steal, they'll get arrested, maybe they'll even be punished, but then the propensity to steal is not uprooted. The propensity to steal is not gone. Only Krishna consciousness can uproot the propensity for sinful action and burn the seeds. Burn the seeds. A person may not steal because he's fearful of punishment, but the propensity is not gone. But Krishna consciousness destroys the propensities, all sinful action. Elephant bath, that analogy, the elephant takes a bath, he comes out on the land and he throws dust all over himself. That's what you call the regular prayaschita. I did it, and I confess, and I do it again. And the Christians do that. Every Saturday and Sunday they confess to the priest, and then they go out and do it again. Regular hygienic process. Staying clean is essential, right? Spiritually as well as materially. You have to follow a regular hygienic process. And verses quoted are from Canto 6, chapter 1, 9 through 10. Maharaj Parikshit asked this question. Why does atonement not work? Do you see how much is on your map? Very nice. Okay, and really fast, we're going to give you the key words here. The first, you have your 6 urges. This is the sloka you must learn. The Sanskrit, the word Vega means urge. So this is repeated. Vacho means what? Voice, right. So Vacho Vega. The urge to do what?
To
The
speak.
urge to speak. Everybody wants to talk. And what do they talk about? If they don't talk about Krishna, what happens?
We talk about
The frog told you. Okay, what's the next Vega?
Mano.
Mano Vega. What's Mano?
Mind.
Yes, the mind is always, I want this, I want that, I want this, I want that. I don't like this, I don't like that. Is that a pushing? Is that an urge? You bet it is. What's your first one? The urge to speak?
Macho.
And the urge of the mind?
Mind.
And what about this one? I had that experience today. I thought I had it under control, and then I got under pressure, and then I popped, you know. Krishna just shows you, you think you've got it under control, and then he'll show you, wait a minute, you know. And I had to apologize, so I'm sorry, under pressure I popped. Okay, Krodha Vega. So you've got 3 pushings. And what happens when you get anger? Degrade. Right. 3, anger, lust, and greed. Degrade, you go down. Every time it's a black mark in your book, the Davis report. Okay, this morning you showed it in the keeper. Okay. And really great. Go down the records. They're up there keeping your notebook. That's pretty heavy. They're up there, the demigods, and they do a checklist on everything you think, say, and do. Okay, Vacho Vega is speech. Second mana. Okay, now we have 3 things in the line, the body. And they're in a line. The tongue, the belly, and the genitals. They come down in line. So jiva here doesn't mean jiva the soul. Jiva means the tongue. The pushing of the tongue. Oh God, I want another birthday cake. With caramel frosting. Okay? Demands of the tongue. If you eat too much, it pushes on the what?
Belly.
The belly. Udara Vega. Right. And then when the belly is pushed on, what happens? Yes, the genitals, the demand of the genitals. So that's why overeating is not recommended. Especially for the males, but also for the females too. Those pushings of the tongue, overeating, and then on the belly, and then on the genitals. Then the control to follow the regular principles is not so easily followed. And what are the analogies used? The snake and the snake. Yes, don't talk about Krishna.
And the sun.
Right, the snake. He can't see, but he can hear. Whoa. And he hears the toad, and the toad's going, arr, arr, arr. And suddenly, he's been launched. He's been launched. And Krishna and the sun. Right, wherever there's Krishna, there is light. Darkness. All right, no darkness. And the verses you're going to get quoted are Chaitanya Charitamrita, Manjalila, chapter 22, verse 99. When one is fully practiced in the method of Krishna consciousness, he can become qualified to become a bona fide spiritual master. So if you wanted, I remember on my exam on NOI, the first question was, what are the qualifications of a spiritual master? Takes one. If a person can do this, he's qualified to make disciples all over the world. Okay, you like these maps, huh?
Yes.
Very good. Okay, so we will now conclude, and you can try on your homework questions, at least 1 or 2 in your smaller notebooks. And we will now continue our class for the videoing, and then I will have it organized. So please accept my most humble obeisances. Coming today? Today is the 7th of January. So are we finished with the recording, Joe? Now